There we go. Steve, good afternoon. But the down button's not working. There we go. Thank you. Steve, it's yeah, that's right. I had to put the Kirby button. I had to push the Kirby button. It's a pleasure to see you back on that end, and thank you for joining us today. We'll turn it over to you. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning, Pentagon Press Corps. So I've got a brief opening statement, and then we'll jump into questions. On March 8th, the 82nd Airborne Division relinquished command of the Combined Joint Force Land Component Command to the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. And that happened during a ceremony here in Baghdad, like I said, on 8 March. The mighty All-Americans of the 82nd Division showed their mettle here for nearly a year, and they've earned the trip home back to see their families all the way. It was a pleasure serving with the 82nd. Together with the coalition, the Screaming Eagles of the mighty 101st Division will continue to work by, with, and through the Iraqi security forces to make gains against ISIL. With that, let's move on to the battlefield. And Tom or Jeff, if you could pull the map up. In Ramadi, which is star number 1, the Iraqi 76th Brigade and the Counter-Terror Service continued operations near Abu Risha, which is just north of Ramadi. They've cleared nearly 11 kilometers along 2 axes. Jumping up a little bit further north in Mosul, which is, of course, circle number 1, coalition aircraft helped the Iraqi army conduct a leaflet drop yesterday. And I've got a copy of that leaflet here to show you. I'm not sure how we're distroing it. It's either hard copy or they've got the digital version. I'll let them handle that on that end. But while that's happening, I think it's interesting to note on this leaflet drop that we've seen some reporting indicated that the leaflet drop may have struck a little bit of a chord, struck a nerve with ISIL. According to some reports we've seen, ISIL actually locked down the population in the neighborhood where the leaflets fell, and they went out there, the ISIL went out there and picked up all of the leaflets. And when you see the leaflet, you'll see it's kind of a leaflet intended to let the population there in Mosul know that they haven't been forgotten, and that the Iraqi security forces are going to come liberate them. Moving on to the rest of the battlefield, back down south, star 6, the hit Haditha corridor, the ISF have begun a new operation. It's called Desert Lynx. Purpose of Desert Lynx is to fight up the Euphrates River Valley and to eventually clear heat. Progress so far has been good as the CTS moves north from Zangora, which is a suburb of Ramadi, and the Iraqi army begins to push south out of Haditha to eventually get to heat. Moving over to Syria on the Mara line, which is star number 7, opposition forces continue to engage ISIL along the forward line of troops there. Earlier this week, opposition forces seized Dudian and Tugali. Unfortunately, ISIL later counterattacked and forced the opposition to withdraw from Tugali. So while the opposition was not able to hold that town, we're pleased that we've seen the willingness and ability of these forces to plan and execute offensive operations. We look forward to seeing more of that. In Shaddadi, which is star number 9 on the map, in the last week, the Syrian Democratic Forces seized that town. In the process, they closed off nearly 2,500 square kilometers of ISIL-controlled terrain, and the friendly forces are now working through the clearance of this pocket. In total, during operations to seize Shaddadi, the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces, gained 3,126 square kilometers. They were supported by over 150 coalition airstrikes. Strikes alone killed just short of 600 enemy fighters, destroyed 42 vehicles, a dozen heavy weapons, and 126 enemy fortifications. Finally, I've got a new circle to add to our map today in southern Syria, kind of in the lower third of the map, and also the left third of the map, is a town called Atamf. In that town, Syrian opposition forces seized an ISIL-held garrison on March 4th, and that's in the tri-border area. So we also supported that with some strikes. So that's it for my walk around the battlefield. I wanted to keep it short so we can get to your questions. And with that, I think I saw Lita sitting there. So, Lita, what's your question?
Yes. Steve, just one quick question on your leaflet drop. It sounds then as though the population probably didn't get to see a lot of these leaflets if, as you're saying, is correct, the ISIL forces picked them up. Is this something that the U.S. is going to keep doing over time, or was this viewed as sort of not a success because it didn't get to the people? And then I have a second question.
Right. So to be clear on the leaflets, so these leaflets were planned and designed and printed and everything by the Iraqi army. They asked us for some help dropping the leaflets, and so we provided that. My guess is that yes, they will probably continue to conduct these leaflet drops. Unlikely that the enemy is able to pick up every single leaflet because they drop them in the thousands, tens of thousands often. So some will get through. This is just another method, right? One of the things that the Iraqi army is trying to do is to connect with that population there in Mosul, just to let them know, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. And you can see in the leaflet where they kind of list all the cities that they've already liberated so far, Ramadi and Beji and et cetera. So, I think the purpose of the reason the Iraqi army wanted to get that leaflet in there is just to kind of help bolster morale or give some hope to the citizens there in Mosul. So I expect you'll see more of that, and not everyone can be successful, but it's no reason to stop trying.
Second question is on airstrikes. There's been just a little bit of confusion here, and I was just hoping you might be able to clear it up. The daily strike press releases that we get, can you give us a sense of whether or not all airstrikes are included in those press releases? And can you say, if not, what are the types of things that aren't included? And give us a sense of the breadth and depth of that.
Sure. And in fact, I took some calls yesterday, and since then, I went and did a little additional research. So I spent today researching this for you guys. And what I discovered was, I think, generally good news. So we do everything we can to report every single strike on those releases. We've missed one or two for admin errors. These happen. But our standard is that if a bomb falls in Iraq or in Syria, it makes it to that press release. Yesterday, I was under a different impression. I thought that some of our special ops strikes were excluded from those releases. I've since done the research. Turns out that no, even the special ops strikes are included on those press releases. We don't single them out as having been conducted by special operations forces, but they are on those releases. So to answer your question more cleanly, every bomb that's dropped is reported out on those strike releases, whether it's an high-value individual or a bunker or a tactical unit or a chemical weapons facility. Now that gets us to the next part of this, which is how specific are we on the description of the targets. So, for example, on a high-value individual, often what you'll see, so, for example, this Omar the Chechen, who we killed earlier, or we struck earlier, that strike was folded into one of the strike releases. It read a small tactical unit, is what it said, in the vicinity of Dar Zor. Or maybe it said in the vicinity of Shaddadi. Yeah, it said a small tactical unit in the vicinity of Shaddadi, because that's what it was. It was Omar the Chechen, along with about a dozen other fighters who were in one spot. That is the definition of a small tactical unit. And we struck it. And
So that's how we read it out. On the chemical weapons facility that we struck earlier in the week, as a result of intelligence that we gained from capturing the chem weapons Emir, that got listed out simply as weapons facility. And then so then the question is, well, why not listed as a chemical weapons facility? That's a fair question. Frankly, we probably could have listed it as a chem weapons facility. It was really just kind of admin process on that one. Now, it's important to note, in some of these, we do very consciously vague it up a little, right? We're consciously vague because we don't want the enemy to know what we know. So, and when we learned that lesson the hard way, frankly, when we did the first set of dash cash strikes, we got a little ahead of ourselves, and we announced, hey, we hit all this cash. And sure enough, all the cash moved. And so that, we didn't like that. Whereas we could have just kind of said, we struck a building and left it at that, and the enemy might not have realized that we were specifically targeting their cash. They may well have thought, lucky shot, they got our cash. So anyway, hopefully that explains it.
Sorry, did you say that Omar the Chechen is dead?
Lita, you broke up. Can you ask that again?
Did you say that the Chechen is dead?
No, I said he was struck. So we initially thought we'd kill him. So here's what happened on that one, right? There was 13 total personnel when the bomb hit. We know that 12 of them are dead, and one of them managed to limp away. So we figured the odds are in our favor on that. We have seen some reporting out of some of the Syrian observers outside the country indicating that he may, in fact, have lived. We're looking into it. So the bottom line is we're not sure. We know we bombed him. We just don't know if we killed him.
Missy Ryan.
Hi, Steve. Missy Ryan. There was a report today from a group of aid organizations and nonprofits that have been involved in humanitarian assistance in Syria, and they blamed, among others, the United States and its European allies for what they said was stoking the conflict in Syria, making it worse rather than making it better because of arming groups there and then sort of just being part of this bigger proxy conflict. What's your reaction to that?
I haven't seen the report, but based on your description, we disagree. We believe that there is a legitimate international terror threat living inside of Syria. That international terrorist group is named ISIL, and we believe that they have to be defeated. This is a struggle of savagery against humanity, civilization against evil. This is not a struggle that we can simply turn our backs on, in our view. And so we believe that ISIL must be defeated. And so that's what we're endeavoring to do.
Barbara.
Colonel Warren, while you point out that you report every bomb that drops in Syria and Iraq, what can you tell us about, in recent days, an land-based artillery rocket HIMARS-type strike the U.S. conducted out of Jordan into southern Syria, and how that would not be an expansion of the land combat role that you have? What can you tell us about this Jordanian-based strike you conducted?
Yeah. So that was a HIMARS strike out of, I guess, northern Jordan in support of the at-TAMF operation. So the brand new circle that I showed on the map earlier, it was in support of that operation to seize that garrison there. And we've reported out the use of HIMARS we've been firing HIMARS out of Taqadum and Al-Assad since last summer. It's a very versatile and flexible weapon system. We're able to use it. It's a nice all-weather system with pinpoint accuracy, so it's every bit as accurate as the air-based strikes that we use. But that's all it is. It's another platform to conduct strikes. And there weren't that many. I think it was 3. We just fired 3 shots in support of this ATTAMP operation. But it's a good indicator that we can integrate with these southern-based opposition forces, and we fully intend to continue leveraging that. I think 2 things, right? Well, number one, two things that we've heard from the Secretary many times is that we're going to find methods and techniques that work, and we're going to do more of those methods and techniques. This is an example of that. Additionally, if you recall, 6 or so months ago, during testimony, the Secretary talked about how in our overall strategy includes strengthening the defense of Jordan, right? And this is something that we're very keenly aware of, right? The Jordanians have been very close partners to us in the fight against terror writ large, and certainly they've borne a heavy burden of displaced persons and migrants, and et cetera, out of Syria. And so we're absolutely happy to help them.
Blaine, in this case, what made it a decision? Why couldn't you, for the town, the place you were trying to support, where the fighting was going on, a couple of things. Why couldn't you just use air? Why this very unusual step of going the way you did? Were you concerned about either regime or Russian air defenses in that location for your aircraft, since it is a relatively new area for you to be involved in combat? Secondly, is this the first land-based combat mission, land-based, out of Jordan? And third, most important, will you go back to including in these press releases your artillery, land-based artillery rocket strikes, which we've been told you are not including in the releases specifically? In other words, can you make these releases have more than just airstrikes on them so we have a full understanding of what's happening?
Okay, and I wasn't taking notes, Barb, so we'll have to go back and forth a little bit here. I guess I'll start with the last one. So that strike was listed on there. I got a few calls about it, even though I was on leave. It was just, we call it rocket artillery. So you can, if you go back to the releases, you'll see it listed on there. And it was the first one in that TAMP. Now, we don't list every platform that all right? So in other words, if we drop a bomb in Mosul, we don't say a bomb dropped in Mosul by this type of aircraft. Similarly, we're not going to do it, we're not going to say bomb dropped in that TAMP fired by a HIMARS system. We're just not going to do that. But I think, I know that we mentioned the HIMARS, the fact that we used rockets in that day's press release. And so I think we're going to probably just keep doing it that way. So this is the second operation in that TAMP. The opposition forces conducted a mortar raid in that TAMP probably 3 months ago, which I briefed out from this podium. That one we did not conduct. We might have to go back and look. We might have done some early strikes, like hours before, as sort of preparation. Those were aircraft at the time. And then the opposition forces infiltrated, across the border. They conducted their mortar raid, and they exfiltrated out. So it's the second shot at TAMP. Now they've actually taken enough. They actually are holding a piece of terrain there in that TAMP. So that's good news. I can't remember if you had any other questions.
Why this time land-based, land combat-based strike by the United States. Why not air? And by the way, did U.S. troops accompany them on that ground raid across the border several months ago?
Right. Okay. So no, they did not. U.S. troops did not accompany on that, nor did they accompany on this one. Why did we select HIMARS? I don't know. Frankly, that's what the weaponeers decide. There wasn't a big strategic reason or anything. It was just a system available. That weapon system worked for that target set. I mean, that's how we do it, right? The weaponeers decide. Had nothing to do with air defenses, nothing to do with any opposition situation. It was simply, hey, we got the system, it's right here. We can use our aircraft somewhere else where the HIMARS can't reach. So it was simply a practical decision.
Next to Tara.
Hi, Colonel Warren. On the chemical facilities, could you give us a sense of how pervasive these chemical facilities are? Are there just a couple in the country? Are they all over the place? And then for the strikes that we've seen reported in the chemical weapons, I forget the group, they've noted a couple of strikes by Sinjar, which is not too far away from Beiji, where U.S. forces are training Iraqi forces. Have the U.S. forces taken any additional, force posture changes? Are they wearing chemical suits? Anything you can give us a little bit more visibility on that?
Well, there's no U.S. troops near Beiji, and Sinjar is actually pretty far away from Beiji. So there's that. We are, of course, prepared to operate in a chemical environment. We always have been. We've been being prepared to operate in a chemical environment in the nation of Iraq since 1991. So this is nothing new to us. We're very familiar with this threat. So we're ready. What was the rest of your question?
I thought they were in Beiji, but maybe I'm mixing it up with Taji. Basically, can you give us some sense of how pervasive these chemical facilities are throughout the country? And
Right. Well, this enemy has been very clear that they would like to employ chemical weapons as one of their tactics, and they've done so several times now that we know of, and several other times that we suspect, and we're working through the process now of trying to determine it. So I mean, it's a legitimate threat. It's not a high threat. We're not frankly losing too much sleep over it. They use two chemicals primarily. One is chlorine. The other one is sulfur mustard, which is a blister agent. Chlorine is a common chemical. You can find it anywhere. It's the same chemical that people use to purify water and to put in their swimming pools and other things. It's a readily available industrial chemical. It's relatively ineffective as a weapon, though, because it's very non-persistent. So you drop it, goes up, disappears. Unless it lands on you, you're probably going to be okay, and it dissipates very rapidly. The mustard obviously is more threatening, but the mustard that they're using is really more it's like a home brew. It's not very potent. And so frankly, I'm not aware of anyone having actually being killed from either of these chemical weapons used on the battlefield. So there's that. How much do they have? Unknown. When we find it, we will strike it. This is something that we're working on to determine how much. I don't think it's probably one of their number one priorities. They've got other priorities, but it's something that they're working on, and it's going to be harder for them now because they've lost their emir. They lost their leader. He's sitting right now in an Iraqi holding cell, and they've lost one of their principal chemical weapon production facilities, which we struck the other day. So they've got less of it now than they did last week, I can tell you that. How much total they have, that's to be determined.
when the emir was captured, a lot was said yesterday about how we couldn't be more transparent about this information, because of the need for ongoing attacks, but I'm also getting, and maybe I'm getting it incorrectly from you, the sense that maybe the mustard and the chlorine aren't as big as a threat as maybe they were advertised earlier this week. Just give us a sense of how dangerous is this, and really, is there a need to keep where these chemical facilities are secret if the threat isn't as big as, I guess, maybe we thought it was?
Well, sure. I mean, what we don't want is for the enemy to know what we know, right? I mean, that's what we try to protect. We try to protect the enemy. We try to prevent the enemy from knowing what we know. Why? Because that makes his life easier. That's not the business we're in. We're in the business of making their life harder. So I mean, that's our fundamental underlying operational security philosophy. If the enemy knows, the more the enemy knows about our knowledge, the better it is for him. We want to know what the enemy knows about us because it's better for us. So that, I mean, that's the back and forth. We have to balance that, obviously, with our duty to be transparent and to inform people of what's going on, how we're operating here. So it's a difficult balance. We don't always get it right. We try our best. I think nobody wakes up in the morning trying to think about ways to withhold information from America, right? We do the opposite of that. That said, we do have to be careful. We don't want our enemy to have any more information that'll help them. And so we understand that this discussion we're having right now is probably giving the enemy a little bit of help. But, it's a risk analysis, right? We say, well, it won't help them that much. And it's very important that America knows what we're doing. So, I mean, this is a daily thing that we wrestle with.
Yes, sir.
Yes, one question for French TV. My name is Laurent Richard. Just for talking about some Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is backing some groups called Jaish al-Islam and Ahrar al-Sham. Do you have some confidence in those very strong players on the ground?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat that one a little bit slower.
I want to talk with you about Ahrar al-Sham and Jaish al-Islam, which are two groups supported and backed by the Saudi in Syria. They are strong players on the ground. Could you tell me about what about your confidence in those groups on the ground?
All right. Yeah. We are gaining confidence in each one of the opposition groups that we identify and work with. So I'm familiar with both of these groups. They are continuing to gain successes. They're continuing to learn how to fight this enemy. I think they fight a little bit against ISIL, and they fight a little bit against the regime. So they're kind of in multiple places at once. But yeah, we're familiar with these organizations, and we're continuing to watch how they operate.
So actually, you say that you have confidence with those groups. According with some reports from Human Rights Watch, Ahrar al-Sham, for example, committed some atrocities against civilian minorities. What is your view about that? Do you maintain that you have some confidence with Ahrar al-Sham and Jaish al-Islam? And just for maybe you know about that Ahrar al-Sham has been funded by former Al-Qaeda representative in Iraq. So could you be more specific in the confidence you have with those groups?
Yeah, I can't be more specific. There are almost uncountable number of small groups running around in Syria. And this is a tough, brutal, awful civil war. We want to partner with groups who are vetted and who are aligned with our objectives, which is to fight ISIL. And so I would have to go back and check and see if we have vetted these groups. I do not believe we have. So I do not believe that we are providing direct support to them. but certainly we're aware of their presence on the battlefield.
Last question about that. Don't you think there is any kind of problem that some group founded by former Al-Qaeda representative receive some support, money and weapons from Saudi, which is a coalition member and a strong player inside the coalition member? What is, could you be more specific and give me, if you can, your view about that? Is there any problem for the US authorities to get some ally like that?
Well, we're not allied with those two groups. We're aware of their presence on the battlefield. What Saudi Arabia does with them is, really, I think, a matter best addressed by the State Department. Our goal here, what we're doing, is killing ISIL, right? That's what we do here. We're in the business of fighting ISIL, and so that's what we're going to continue to do. And as we find groups who are aligned with our view that ISIL needs to be attacked and fought, then we will vet those groups. If they pass that vetting, then we will continue to work with those groups in the pursuit of our ultimate goal, which is to defeat ISIL.
Hi, Colonel Warren. I want to go back to chemical weapon issue. Can you please clarify how often ISIL is using chemical weapon in a daily basis in the conflicts, in the battleground? And do you confirm any major incidents where they used chemical weapon? There are two major incidents which occurred both in August 2015, one in Mara, Syria, the other one in Arbil, Iraq. And in the incident in Mara, one five-day-old baby was killed, and the other incident affected 35 Peshmergas, according to the press reports. Can you confirm that these two attacks were conducted by ISIL, and how Mosul University facilities are playing in the production process?
Now, so there's been a number of suspected chem weapons strikes in the last year. Some of those we've confirmed through lab testing, others we have not. I don't know which two you're referring to. I don't have a list in front of me, but there's been a handful of them, and we continue to be concerned by these. And this is kind of back to my discussion with Tara earlier. The key thing about these chemical weapons, of course, is that they make everyone very nervous, right? They have a strong psychological impact, which is one of the reasons that we want to eliminate them. The other reason being that they're a weapon, and the fewer weapons ISIL has, the better. So I don't know which exact two strikes you're talking about. But I can confirm that there has been a handful of confirmed chem weapon strikes over the last year, and an additional handful of suspected that we're trying to work through and to determine whether or not they actually were chem strikes or not. That's all I can remember from your question.
Mosul University and the mustard gas production, are they using the facilities there?
Mosul University. So I don't know. I'll have to check. We know that they have a presence in Mosul University. We know that there are obviously there's a chemistry department over there previously, so presumably there's equipment there that's useful. Whether or not they're assembling chemical weapons there in the university, I don't know.
And just one follow-up on the situation in Azaz. Last month you said that you were considering to support the Afrin Kurds in terms of their fight against ISIL. Have you made a decision on this, or where are you? Do you have an update about the situation in Azaz and the advancement of the Kurds there?
No update on the situation with the Afrin Kurds.
Colonel, back to the HIMARS in Jordan, could you just give us a brief reminder or update as to how many troops we have in Jordan and what their mission is?
I'd have to get that. I'll have to take that one. I don't have it at my fingertips. You know, there's several different types of missions going on in Jordan right now. There's the defense of Jordan. We conduct training operations. You know, we have an enduring presence at Kasadik, the training center there, and now we've also got some CJTF specific operations that are going on. So I really think you're gonna have to go high. You probably have to go to CENTCOM to get the big picture for CJTF. For us, it's only just the small, just that small HIMARS detachment. I don't have a number. It's small though, double digits.
David Martin.
Steve, you've been talking about the strikes that were in response to the interrogation of that chemical weapons engineer. You've been talking about it in terms of one strike against a production facility in Mosul. Is that it? One strike, or were there multiple strikes against? And if so, what were the other targets?
Yeah, there was two. So far, there's been two. One of them, and this is just how I'm doing it. One of them we've been looking at anyways, and confirmed it through him, and so got it. The other one we got from him completely. So one was already about to get hit, both in Mosul. I don't have the exact location in Mosul, but in the Mosul vicinity, Mosul and Tal Afar, that whole area is really the thickest kind of ISIL area in the north.
Was the second one also described as a weapons production facility?
It was. One of them was on Sunday, the other one was on Tuesday.
Next to Phil.
Hey, Colonel. Quick question. General Austin told the Senate that he had recommended restarting the Syria Train and Equip program. Could you tell us anything about that? And I'm assuming this was based on recommendations from General McFarland.
Phil, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take a pass on that one today. I hope that I'll be able to talk to you about it a little bit next week, next Wednesday. But unfortunately, I just have to take a pass on that one today. I'm sorry.
Next, Lucas.
Colonel Warren, what is the U.S. military's policy on detaining ISIS operatives?
Right. Our policy I guess, would best be summed up as short-term and case-by-case. So there's only been two so far. Neither of those two has been the same. In the case of the first one, Saif, we held on to her for some time, and then eventually moved her over to the custody of the Iraqi government. In the second case, this chemical guy, we only held on to him for a very short time, about 2 weeks, and then we moved him over. So we're not equipped for long-term detention. We're not set up here for that, so we're not in that business. But there's no real one-size-fits-all answer. As we take people off the battlefield, we're just going to have to make the decisions as we go.
What is the definition of short-term detention, and is case-by-case, is that the de facto policy?
Yeah, that is the policy, I think. That's how we're approaching it here at the CJTF. There isn't even a hard definition of short-term. 14 to 30 days as a ballpark figure. But even that is not really completely nailed down.
How do I explain to my mother-in-law, Betty Harper from Laurel, Mississippi, and other Americans out there who are a little confused that if this war against ISIS is this comprehensive war, it's by all accounts going to take years to fight ISIS. How do you square that with only holding a detainee for 14 to 30 days when there, I'm sure, a lot of information to glean from this person months down the road?
Well, I mean, this is not a catch and release program, Lucas. I mean, we capture them, and then we don't have the means to hold them. We just give them to the Iraqis to hold. You know, if we got to go back and talk to them, we'll go back and talk to them. You know, if there's more information that comes out, you know, if we have to confirm a piece of info or whatever the case, I mean, they're right. They're still here in Iraq. I mean, we'll go get them and you know, interrogate them some more.
Bill, Pentagon.
Hey, Colonel, are you considering building other facilities to hold these guys a little bit longer if necessary?
No.
Just one more, Colonel Warren. There have been, over the years, have been numerous prison breaks in Iraq from insurgents being freed. How confident are you that Iraq can hold the ISIS members that you all helped capture and interrogate?
We're confident they can hold them, and if some escape, then we'll just go catch them again or kill them.
Andrew.
Colonel Warren, again, back on the HIMARS in Jordan, just quickly, this is the first time that detachment has conducted a strike, is that correct? And also, has that detachment been there for a while, or is it a relatively new presence and new option for you all?
First time they've done anything, and I'll have to check. I mean, they've been there, it seems to me like it's been a couple of months, but honestly, I can't exactly remember, so I'll have to take that one for you. I'll get you the answer through Roger or J.V. Brindle.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if you could repeat what you said at the very beginning, maybe the first minute of what you said. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Steve,
to screaming eagles.
I apologize. You about the first minute of your topper was cut, and I hate to do this to you, but as a closer, could you give us the first minute of your topper?
Absolutely. I think my topper was only 2 minutes long, so I'll just give you the whole thing. Here we go. On March 8th, the 82nd Airborne Division relinquished command of the Combined Joint Forces Land Component to the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault, during a ceremony here in Baghdad. The mighty All-Americans of the 82nd Division showed their mettle here for nearly a year, and they've earned the trip back home to their families, all the way. Together with the coalition, the Screaming Eagles of the mighty 101st Division will continue to work by, with, and through the Iraqi security forces to make gains against ISIL. On to the battlefields. Do I need to read the battlefield too, or no?
All right, we got it. Yeah, we're up to where we picked up your audio, Steve. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks to Mrs. Harper back in Mississippi, and thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you on Wednesday.